Hey guys, welcome back for another episode, a very special episode of the Altmed podcast. Andrew Dowling here, and got some very, very special guests with us today. I think this is the first time, Mitch, we've ever done this in this format, but we are delighted to have Lauren Jackson, the legendary basketballer, on. Hey, Lauren. We've got Tom Matera from Levin Health, and we've got Dr. Jim to join
Back
us
again.
So
Yes.
this is the A team.
There's also Mitch Kurtz here.
Oh, yeah, Mitch Kurtz. Yeah.
G'day, guys. Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Just that guy.
Well, everyone knows who you are, right?
Well, now they do, thankfully. So basically, I think as always, we start with a little bit of an introduction on our esteemed guests, and it might be really good to hear a little bit about your story, Lauren, and how you found medical cannabis, and then a little bit from you, Tom, as well afterwards. Just because you're part of 11, so we want to hear that.
Sounds good. Esteemed guest. Haven't been called that in a while. I'll take it.
Usually just steamed guest.
Yeah. Well, do you want to just hear some of my story up front?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
All right. Well, yeah, I think I've been pretty open about, my history with my injuries and things like that. But I think, I retired in 2016 after about 3 years of just back-to-back surgeries, different injuries, just chronic knee issues. And also in that time, I was sort of going through this like downward spiral of prescription medication. So I was taking a lot of stuff to, help with the pain, but then help me sleep, then stuff to help with my anxiety and the issues that I was dealing with emotionally. So I was like on this bit of a pretty bad cycle. And when I ended up retiring finally, I made the decision to get off everything completely. So I had a knee replacement, and then I made the decision, no more drugs in my life. So I sort of went cold turkey, and then I had a couple of kids, had my, got life back on track, got everything feeling good and everything again. Only problem was I was about 40 kilos overweight after having 2 kids, and I wanted to get back in the gym and start, trying to, I guess, holistically get myself better, which was, obviously being physically, active, being a good parent, like being healthy and strong, because that's sort of how I'd spent my life as an athlete. So I started going back to the gym, and then I couldn't recover. My knee would blow up. I couldn't train. It would take another 2 or 3 weeks for me to get back in the gym. And I just didn't have the time or the resources either to really sort of rehab properly, I guess, if you like, or anything like that. And even when I did, it just hurt so much. I was like, I can't do this. I had too many other priorities. So the opportunity came for me to go on actually, it started before this, to be honest. I'd spoken to one of my old teammates over in America who'd been trying some CBD products and talking openly, in the public about it. And I asked her, I just sort of said, what is it like? She's like, it's fantastic. It's really helped me. She's still playing the WNBA. And so I thought, maybe I'll give it a crack. So I actually made a call to a GP and took that first step a few years back. So that was the first part of it.
Wow. I'm interested in hearing that just because under I think it's the World Anti-Doping Code, Cbd oil has only recently been taken off the prohibited list or the banned list. How did that work? Were you a bit nervous when sort of taking it, or what kind of investigation did you have to do around that?
I wasn't nervous about taking it because I'd retired. So, and it was prescribed by a doctor. So it was completely legal. And like I said, with my history with prescription medication and what it sort of done to me, what I felt like I was when I was an athlete, I felt like I was a shell of a human being. I feel like I was in a downward spiral. And I'd made the decision, especially when I had kids, that I wasn't going to be taking that stuff again because I wanted to be the best parent that I could be. So I'd heard about CBD, what it can actually do for your body, and the anti-inflammatory properties that it has. But also, I had to, I've had so much pain in my life as well, like physically with my knee and my hips and my back and everything, that I had to make a decision, for me, like what was the most important thing? I want to be active. I want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be pain-free. So I was willing to give it a shot, and like I said, there is a huge stigma around medicinal cannabis. And I think when I had the discussion with my parents, who are, ultra traditional people, and, you talk about weed or anything around them, it's frowns and very uncomfortable and things like that. But we had an actual discussion, and they were really supportive. They went and did their research, they read about it, and they were like, "No, we think you should try this. We think it'll help you." But they'd seen how bad I'd gotten on the other stuff, so that's what happened.
Do you think did it live up to your expectations in terms of what, you were told versus when you actually, tried it?
Well, probably, because I'd heard that it really, in terms of what it does for you physically, I'd heard that it actually helped a lot of people, particularly athletes, and athletes were using it to recover. So I sort of had an expectation that it would, do something or help me a little bit. And it did. Like, straight away, I started feeling better, especially in my knee. But that was for me, and I don't know if it works for everybody like that. But it's one of those things where it, like, psychologically, it had no effect on me whatsoever. So I really felt like I wasn't doing anything different. I mean, other than taking the oil, which has been hugely beneficial to my recovery and my comeback.
Can I ask? So back in the day, like back when you're peak basketballing, what would be your sort of medical regime following a game? Because I've spoken to I've got a sort of a few.
I should be talking about that publicly, but it's...
I've got like a few sort of like the other guys on the Levin ball with us, like Damien Hardwick, and and these other guys that played footy as well, and they just said they would just guzzle anti-inflammatories like it was going out of fashion, with not knowing what it was doing to their guts. Is that kind of what you would do, with just a handful of kind of ibuprofen and into it? And
yeah, it was anti-inflammatories, obviously. We used to, in America, I can't even remember what the name of the drug was, but there was it was ibuprofen pills that were like 1,000 milligram pills.
Oy.
So yeah, they were huge, but we get bottles of them, and like that, they became a very good friend of mine over the years. But it wasn't, look, I think for me, like I said, it wasn't just the anti-inflammatories, it was the painkillers, it was the other stuff that I was on too. And it got to a point where I felt like I was walking around in just a zone. I was a zombie. Yeah. I wasn't myself anymore. I was a shell of a human being, and I was miserable, I was struggling. So to have gotten out of that, and I'm very proud of myself.
So it's probably safe to say you would have appreciated if that was available during the time you're actually playing, I imagine.
If there was an option, that would have been fantastic. Yeah, it would have been. I think it does become a pretty messy cycle when you're a professional athlete. You've got to perform. For female athletes in particular, we're playing year round, to make that money. It's not something, you can't just go to one conference or one league and play in that league for 6 months and then recover. You have to play 12 months of the year. So there's a huge focus on, just making sure that you're staying healthy, and you do anything to stay healthy. Well, I did, and it cut my career really, really short. And the other part of that too is, if you're playing for 3 or 4 teams a year, you've got 3 or 4 different doctors as well prescribing medications and things for you as well. So there's no consistency really across the board, and you do what you're told, you take what you're told, and it's a cycle,
That's a good point about the multiple doctors. I didn't think about that, actually.
Yeah.
Now she's just got one fantastic doctor looking after her.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I don't know. I've never met him.
Would you have described cannabis as a performance enhancing drug?
No way. No, for me personally, is, like I said, it's the anti-inflammatory properties and the way it helps my body recover after sessions. So when I'm loading, the more I load, the more my body flares up. And what I found, especially when I started training back on court and everything, before I stopped taking it, I was just able to recover quicker after these sessions. So instead of being able to do 1 session a week on court, I was doing 2. And it just helped that process along a little bit quicker. So that was, to me, probably the most eye-opening thing. And yeah, I wanted to tell my story because I think that if it's helped me this much, and I know how much pain I was in, I know it can help other people as well, but they've got to want to be helped. And I think that's that was for me the biggest factor.
So I want to ask a little bit about, we've talked about the physical toll that, performing at the highest level, can cause. But once you sort of started on cannabis medicine, what did you notice? Because we've sort of, spoken to patient advocates and doctors and the like, and they talk about, the pain causes someone to not get a good night's sleep, and then that affects mood and mental health. Did you sort of feel like it was it had a bit of a domino effect once you started to take it?
Oh, no, not so much. For me, it was just more the anti-inflammatory responses in my body. So, I still sleep with my kids, and it's so like I do a lot of work in that area with a different company, with ResMed. So, and they've been helping me with my sleep and everything like that too. But I think just in terms of what medicinal cannabis has done for me, like during the wake hours, has been incredible. And I mean, for me, it's just been about that, really.
The anti-inflammatory. Did you? Where are you at now in terms of your? I imagine you're not shooting hoops every day, but what kind of what's your physical regime like these days? And is the inflammatory stuff all under control?
No. So I had to stop taking CBD oil back in March because I was planning on playing NBL1. And so obviously we've got to conform to the ASADA-WADA doping code. Right. So I went off about a month because I'm straight-laced. So I always have been, in terms of, being an athlete, just trying to do what I have to do. And so I went off it, and we applied for a TUE, and we've had to jump through a few hoops, which, like, again, I'm not gonna argue about it. I think it's that those rules are there for a reason, and those processes are there for a reason. But I'm still waiting for that TUE to come through. So I have been off it, and look, there's been a few injuries along the way. The old body's still an old body, so it does flare up from time to time. We've just come off the back of 2 games as well on the weekend in Sydney, and a 6-hour bus trip home. So I'm definitely feeling a little bit sore and sorry right now, but it's
what's a TUE, by the way? Sorry, I actually
just therapeutic use exemption. So it's you can apply for these through Sport Integrity Australia, and that would mean that I could take the CBD oil without.
Well,
Lauren's on so for listeners, everyone, so Lauren's on a full spectrum CBD product, which means that there is a very tiny amount of THC left in the product, just because there's evidence to show you get a bit of a what's called the entourage effect, so you get a bit of a better effect with all the molecules left in. It's such a minuscule amount that, look, I don't even think it would be detectable on a roadside drug test or anything like that, but it unfortunately would register if they were to do a urine or blood test on Lauren. So for her to be able to use it, we've had to submit an application for a TUE to say that she's able to use this product containing a very, very small amount. And then, as Lauren said, there has been some hoops to jump through, lots of assessments and that kind of thing. But we're still in the process of getting that through, and fingers crossed. But now, it's looking that she's likely to represent Australia, that it has to be very done properly, because then it'll fall under the WADA and everything, not just ASADA. So
I was going to say, if anyone's going to have jump through the hoops, it'd probably be Lauren. But, listen, this is our podcast. This is what we do.
Sorry. The slapstick humour. There you go.
The process is there for a reason, and we have to do what we're told, James.
Yes, I know.
Could you switch that out for a pure CBD, or is that still?
I think we could. Yeah,
you could, because
I'm that athlete that won't do it. I won't touch it if it's going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, because what drugs are we actually on since March for the pain then? What drugs are you actually using now?
Celebrex, quite a lot of Celebrex. I'm actually using nitrate patches on my foot where I've had quite a lot of pain in my feet. So, and those. So that's basically what I'm on at the moment. I'm not on any painkillers or anything like that.
Oh, okay. So
because I
not the same
refuse to-
not the same drugs you're on before medicinal cannabis.
Yeah.
But the
right,
Celebrex,
okay.
Celebrex is still an anti-inflammatory and still, does if for someone that's had stomach issues from previous overdoing of anti-inflammatories, it still does upset your tummy a bit. Hey, and there's some other.
It
other side
does, yeah.
effects.
And it's also like I have ulcers in my mouth as well, and I'm not sure whether that's from that, but it's only just flared up, and I'm like, what if this is happening in my mouth? I know my stomach's paying for it, but yeah, I have definitely tummy issues. There's no doubt.
So, did you think several years ago you'd be possibly lining up for the Opals?
Again?
No, I didn't anticipate I would be back at this point, but yeah, I'm still able to move, which is great. It's amazing, really. I can't believe it.
No, it's good to see you. Good to see you back out there.
Well, I think we've got a camp, so I'm going overseas next week with the national team, and then I think they're going to make like 3 final cuts, so I could be cut, which is okay too. I just come home to be with my kids. But yeah, so we'll see how it all goes.
But beyond WADA, is there still quite a bit of, social stigma within the professional scene around that cannabis? Or do you think people are kind of like, you know what, this thing is just not a big deal?
I think people are starting to see the benefits of it and understand the benefits. I mean, there's definitely still stigma out there associated with it, but I think in terms of athletes and the new generation of kids coming through, I think they've seen enough to know and understand the science enough to understand its benefits.
Because haven't the NBA stopped testing for THC? I think
They have, yeah.
THC as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. I mean, could you see yourself using THC in a medical vein? I mean, it's certainly, I wouldn't describe it as a performance enhancing.
I was going to say, you wouldn't play for the Opals under the influence of THC. I wouldn't have
No,
thought.
but things like sleep or something like that, it definitely becomes an option to use instead of a traditional sleeping pill, is where we would use some THC. And I don't think Lauren would be keen on smoking or inhaling or pulling a bong or anything like that, but we could use an oil.
I think for me, it's more
To halftime, just Gatorade oranges in a bong. Yeah, it's perfect.
it's the CBD has done everything that I needed it to do. For me personally, I think everybody's different, and I think everyone needs to have those discussions with their own doctor. But for me, no, I probably wouldn't use anything with THC in it purely because of what I've been through with prescription medication and in my history with drugs. I've got no interest in anything really. That's
Actually,
just me, but that's just me.
Just to jump in on the history with drugs, the drugs that you were taking before the medicinal cannabis, were you taking opioids in?
Yeah, like pain fort and like endone, because I'd had a lot of operations too, so I was on a lot of like harder stuff. And it was a lot, and it was for a long time, like over a period of time. So I'm very, very cautious about what I put into my body now. And it's, like I said, I've got kids, and I just want to make sure that I'm the very best version of myself. So, and that's it. Like, that's exactly how I feel, and that's why I'm here right now talking about CBD oil.
Amazing. And it's interesting, but how do you place Dr. James Stewart, I'll say rather. How do you place an opioid versus THC when you're considering, the performance of a supreme athlete, let's say?
As in, what do you mean?
As in, would you say that there's much of a difference between an opioid and THC in terms of what it's going to do, or is it giving, competitors an edge in it, or is it much harder to play if you've had cannabis as opposed to?
I don't think either of them. I don't think opioids or THC are performance enhancing. I think what they do is allow the person to perform or to recover, train without pain. Now, whether you classify that as then they're without pain, so therefore their performance is going to be better. But I don't think you're enhancing their performance. I think you're bringing someone up to the level they would normally be pain free. It's not like an anabolic steroid or something where you're going to make them run faster, jump higher. You're just allowing them to perform without pain. But then you've got obviously now we're seeing the pandemic coming out with opioids and the addiction and the side effects and all that kind of thing, and the fact that you build up tolerance and need more and more and more versus CBD with some added benefit of a bit of THC in there for pain, you're not going to build up tolerance. It's going to be a lot safer.
But arguably not even arguably, isn't it difference in the mechanism that an opioid would mask that pain, whereas CBD might be
Yes.
reparative in some
So
form?
CBD will be working on the anti-inflammatory side of things, whereas your opioid's just blocking that signal to the brain, letting you know there's pain down there. So yeah, you're getting a therapeutic benefit as well as just marking the pain as well with cannabinoid medicine as well.
Yeah, which arguably from a sports person's perspective would
It's a
be
better option.
Yeah.
Because you're repairing and blocking pain.
yeah, interesting. I'm very curious to see how that would play out as well with the THC function in sport as you go along. Do you know if you probably can't comment, but on who exactly? But if there's other sports people that are using CBD or have had success.
Honestly, I don't know, but I can tell you that a lot of people have called me, have asked me, have spoken to me about it. It's unbelievable how many people are like, oh, I would just love to try that, and purely because they're on so many anti-inflammatory medications. It's rife in sport. I mean, anyone that you talk to, athletes, that's how they get through. They get prescribed anti-inflammatory drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, when you're at that very highest echelon of sport, you do whatever you can to stay there. And that's what I did. Like I was caught up in that cycle. And I know if it was available, if it was an option for athletes to try, I think it would be very beneficial.
And I imagine you would have had quite a few side effects from some of those anti-inflammatory drugs that you would have been taking and the rest, let's say. But and the case with CBD oil.
Any negative effects at all with anything's been?
No, I had maybe dry mouth for 24 hours or something. But a nice glass of water sorted that out.
Sounds intense.
It's not a bad
full
question
on,
because
full on.
when you think about it, Lauren's had to take herself off the CBD oil. What was it like taking yourself off the opioids? I'm just thinking after that amount of time, it probably wasn't so much fun.
No, it was horrible. It was my parents at that point, they lived over on the South Coast, and my mum had to come and stay with me for I think it was about 2 weeks. And I mean, I didn't get out of bed for a week. It was horrible. But and look, I really didn't understand how bad it was until that point. It was just, oh God, it was horrible. Yeah. But look, it got me to this point, and I really feel like I've been so lucky to get through it all, and I'm here and able to talk and tell my story, because there was a point where I'm pretty sure it was more than me worried about me. I think my parents and people that were close to me were pretty worried about me for a period of time as well.
Yeah, the rebound that we're witnessing here, and the fact that you're in the mix for Opal's basketball again is just incredible.
Hoops, rebound.
Yeah,
he's
so
on it.
That's what we do.
on it.
You just got to deal
the
with
net
it.
result of this
a slam
podcast
dunk.
is just no. We'll stop it there. But no, Lauren, conscious of your time, we're so grateful to have you come on and just talk to us and provide that kind of elite athlete's perspective on CBD oil. Really excited about your next adventures with the Opals potentially, and it's just you'll be going in feeling a lot more balanced, it would seem, off the back of everything that you've come through. So
Yeah,
it's great to
definitely.
see.
I don't feel like an elite athlete anymore. I still feel like a single mum, and a 41-year-old. But it's so much more fun now, like playing and being fully there and just loving every minute of it. I feel like I'm on borrowed time a little bit, but I can't believe it.
No, you're bouncing off the walls.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Wow.
You just had to do one more.
Yeah, it was there for the taking. No, but we do
Excellent.
appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lauren. Really
No
appreciate your
worries
time
at all.
and best of luck.
Thank you. Good on you.
Yeah.
Take care.
So we just spoke with Lauren then, and you can see why I get frustrated as a medicinal cannabis prescriber, and having to jump through hoops to prescribe this, when you can see a professional athlete, and her story isn't uncommon, that they take so many anti-inflammatories, opioids, and it's not even no one blinked an eye at it. You've got, like you said, you've got doctor, lots of doctors all prescribing the same things that just cause these side effects. And, she was, like you said, a shell of a person, didn't know, but she was just doing what doctors were telling her to do to compete, to perform at the highest level. Now we have all this, information, research, studies to show how safe CBD and THC can be, yet we've still got these hoops to jump through to get someone, to be able to use these products. So it is frustrating, but hopefully, like, by Lauren's story and by sort of what we're doing and, the other athletes that we see and past athletes and that kind of thing, we can get it out there and get cannabinoid medicine as part of the regular go-to for athletes and everyday people, instead of these horrendous medications that are out there at the moment.
I mean, when you're thinking about it, I know we're talking with Lauren about inflammation, but what kinds of injuries can sports people stand to benefit from medical cannabis?
Well, their bodies get, especially let's say footy. So they finish a game of AFL, they are just beaten up. They've gone for 2 hours, hammer and tongs. Every single joint in their body is going to be inflamed. So a common practice will be at the end, okay, bang, here's a, I don't know how many they take. I'm not saying this is happening at the moment, but previously, here's a packet of anti-inflammatories, packet of ibuprofen or something like that. Now that's going to, we know that that's going to give you stomach grief. It sits in your stomach, it causes ulcers, all this type of thing. So that's the one thing, inflammation. So CBD is a fantastic anti-inflammatory without the burn of the gut, out the causing ulcers. So getting, load someone up with CBD even before a game, because you get some prophylactic benefit from getting CBD on board to prevent that inflammation and to protect those joints prior to the game. So people would benefit from CBD loading prior to a game and afterwards as well. Okay, so without the side effects. So these type of things, we need to do the studies on them, but that would be something to benefit these athletes.
You're kind of saying it almost like a protein shake before and after.
Kind of, yeah.
Akin to that.
Yeah.
It's like somebody, and maybe some examples just for people sitting at home, like people understand inflammation, but what is that? Joint pain? Is that knees? Is that back pain?
A bit of everything. Like, joints, your knees, your shoulders, your hips, but also, head knocks as well. Okay, so you're going to get inflammation in the brain, the meninges that surround surround the brain. So, head knocked, you don't have to be even concussed, but footy players, everyone, their heads are getting pretty well banged all the time. That's going to cause slight inflammation within the skull, increase the pressure, and that can cause issues as well. Headaches, issues concentrating, these type of things. So, there's some good evidence coming out from the States, from the NFL, where, they just go in they think because they've got a helmet on, they're not going to do damage. They just go in head first.
Yeah.
Then there's some good evidence coming out with, giving people, especially if they've been knocked out, high dose CBD straight after, to see the long lasting effect of that protection on the brain. And there's really good evidence coming out. I've got, a couple of high profile athletes. I've got an NRL player who suffered, serious post concussion syndrome. So much so the seizures. Okay, so that many knocks to the head. He he developed epilepsy. So he was having seizures, brain fog, issues concentrating, all these type of things. And it's not uncommon. I've got a lot of ex-AFL players that have got the same symptoms happening. CBD on board, he hasn't had a seizure since I've started getting CBD on board. He's clear. He's functioning the best he's ever been. Clarity, focus, these headaches are gone. So,
I mean, we've heard about that throughout history and even more recently, kind of some of the more neurological, Parkinson's, for example, from boxing, things like that, or potentially even MND, some more...
CTE.
Yeah. Are these all...
Is that the one that gets diagnosed posthumously? What am I thinking of?
Using too many big words here for
me.
Dumb it down a bit. Too
many letters.
This is the...
You need some CBD.
I thought you were talking about Michael Clint's thing that he's got recently. I'm thinking, hang on.
CBD, CTE,
what's CTE?
MND.
So CTE, I'm pretty sure, is the condition that is being diagnosed after an athlete has died. So, for example...
This is the Geelong player, Sam Newman's friend, and he
the
died,
one from the movie? Where
and basically it's what they're sort of saying from what I read in the media is that, this is the type of condition that could cause, real problems. I was going to say real headaches, but Mitch would just jump at that. But it would cause real problems for a lot of codes where concussion is sort of a regular feature of the gameplay. Because, and I know it's been mooted before that there might in the future be class actions and the like in various sports. And so, really are we doing enough to protect?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it is becoming more prevalent that consistent knocks to the head. It doesn't take a
brain
surgeon, a rocket scientist, whatever to say. To work out that continually knocks to the head's not going to do you any favors.
Yeah.
But now we have the research to do those autopsies to do the brain scans and that kind of thing now of these ex-athletes, and see what's actually happened, and sort of postulate what's going on. And I think a lot of the time it does just come down to inflammation. Inflammation. You hit something in your body, no matter what it is, it's going to become inflamed, and then that affects its ability to work properly, and then that affects how you feel in the body. So CBD is not only something you take after you feel to help. CBD is showing properties to be neuroprotective as well. And like I said, something that pre-season, get our players CBD, loading them up with CBD, just getting it on board, circulating around, and then that will give a protective mechanism throughout the season and allow a lot of players, as they're getting older, to play a full season instead of having to have, you got Buddy and these guys who have got to take games off here and there because their bodies just can't tolerate it anymore. Yeah. I haven't got the evidence to prove, but I'm sure if you had these players with, CBD on board before season, before the game, afterwards, it's going to help them. It's going to get them. And the good thing about it is, as I always say, is there's bugger all side effects. It's not going to do any damage. The CBD in the body is a protectant. It's safe to use. It's something that we can get on board and be comfortable that it's not going to do any harm. Which the other drugs we give, you can't say they're not going to do any harm because they definitely are.
And just on that interaction side, you look at elite athletes and they are almost treated like mice in a lab. Everything that they do, their sleep patterns, their nutrition, all the sports medicine, it's, so I can imagine.
Good cohort to test on in a way.
Yeah, well, just in the sense that, I imagine, and it's also just, a lot of, while you're talking, I'm thinking about the reasons. I agree with you, in terms of the, people that we have spoken to, side effects non-existent really with CBD, but you do think about how anyone that's nervous or worried about widespread use of cannabis as a medicine in the field of sports medicine is perhaps looking at it through that lens of, well, how is it going to interact with the nutrition program for an athlete? How is it going to potentially enhance performance? And that's the sort of, it's a totally different intersection to, because we in our Altmed podcast tackle a range of topics, and we've done, drug driving, and in that context, it's about impairment and whether it will cause impairment. This is about, I think, just how does that sort of drop into the whole ecosystem of an athlete? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, it is tricky. I think the reason that it's still hasn't been embraced totally by the sports, fraternity is because of there's the stigma with cannabis.
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't want to be out there promoting to your young kids that our athletes are on cannabis, but you can, because it's not the marijuana, this drug that it was perceived as in the 60s and 70s. If you tuned into my amazing podcast several weeks ago on Altmed, you would know that. But
one of the best episodes we've ever done.
I hear the numbers were great. But there's this. You've got your two things. You got marijuana. This that like a lot of the sort of older generation have, that this is this evil, illegal drug, and if you do it, it's going to lead to heroin and coke. It's going to lead to nothing good. Whereas now we're not talking about that. We're talking about cannabis, medicinal cannabis, that at the right dose as a medication is safe and should be used. It's different things, and I think that's why still the governing bodies of the sports and that kind of thing, no one's jumped at it yet, because in their mind I think it's still going to be seen that our stars are all on medicinal cannabis, therefore the young kids playing are going to go and smoke cones after a game. I don't think that would happen, but I think that's what everyone's worried about, is that people are going to link medicinal cannabis with illegal marijuana smoking at the back of the shed after a game,
I think America did it really well in a sense. It's kind of well and not well in kind of calling it hemp, because they've moved. People see, like, I'm taking CBD, I'm taking hemp, I'm not taking cannabis. It doesn't feel like it's almost the same thing. It's now they've branded CBD hemp, whereas it's anything with cannabinoids in it is cannabis.
It's not hemp. Yeah,
it's not hemp.
Hemp's not. Yeah,
hemp is a fibrous material, but we call it CBD from America. Some people do because they branded it this way to kind of get around the laws and get around the stigma. And it's like, so if you're taking CBD, you're taking hemp oil.
Yeah,
you're not taking medical cannabis, which is
that's
weed,
why I try. That's why I always try and use the term cannabis. I never use medical marijuana. It's cannabis, medicinal cannabis.
But did I hear? So Lauren was talking about how they've effectively stopped screening for THC in the NBA.
NBA, they don't test anymore.
So can you imagine? What people would think if they did that in AFL, NRL?
Well, they don't screen for alcohol.
That's what I was going to say.
Or coffee.
Yeah.
And they're both drugs.
Yeah, totally.
Back in the day, footballers used to come off the field and have a beer at halftime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we often say that alcohol is more harmful than cannabis. So can you imagine one of them coming off and just having a quick
pop? Having a dart and a VB and a whiskey at halftime in the 70s or something.
And a bong, as Dr. James puts it.
We should probably talk a little bit about Levin.
I was going to say.
Well, we sort of are, really.
That's true.
So Lauren's such an important part of Levin, and so Dr. James, because he's on our medical advisory board, whereas Lauren's on our sports advisory board.
And Lauren's using the Levin C100.
Correct, yes.
Nice.
Absolutely. Well,
Tom's like, if it's sport and cannabis, I am sport and cannabis.
I'm back at the gym after so many years. I'm basically an athlete, really singing it here.
But Tom, it might be good for you to give a bit of a background how you got into, where you are at the moment, how you got into medical cannabis and how the sport, and a little bit about where you come from, because we usually do that at the start. But
and the sport advisory board as well with Levin, because we're getting some good names on there. Now.
Well, let's start with the sports advisory board, because we just had Lauren on. So the other people that we've got, Damien Hardwick, so 3-time AFL premiership coach. I wish it were 4, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Thanks, Collingwood. And then we've got Alistair Clarkson, or Clarko. He's got 4 premierships. 4 AFL premierships, and because it's going to air later, how many? 3?
I was just going to say Dimmer also 2, I believe, as a player.
Oh yes, well I don't care because
I don't know.
It's all about Richmond.
So I'm an Essendon.
Was it 2 for
supporter,
Essendon? Yeah, what, like 93 and
one at Essendon and
2000
one
or something.
Port
2004. 3.
Yeah. 4. Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
4.
Very good.
Yeah, trying to think back in those days.
long-suffering Bombers fan, but all he's most well known, I think, for the Richmond.
For sure.
Success.
Yeah, for sure. Thank God we actually got out of that one. And who else have we got? So Damien Oliver, so racing royalty, I suppose. And then with this podcast going to air a little bit later, we can say that we've got Andrew Johns from. Well, is he NRL or?
Of course he's NRL.
NRL. See, there you go.
Knights legend.
So
he's an immortal.
You could tell Dr. James is from Queensland, the rest of us are from Victoria.
He's a bloody cockroach, though. He's a New South Welshman, so I don't like him at State of Origin. No, he's a superstar, so it's great to have him on as well.
And they're really helpful because Joey will be coming to our 2 dinners that we're hosting for doctors in August in Sydney, which will be great. And then, Clarko's doing one for us in Bendigo and one in Melbourne. Dimmer's doing one for us in Melbourne. And Dr. James is the host of all of those dinners, because he's the medical expert. So for us at Levin Health, that's what it's about. We've got to have excellent products, but we've also got to have advocacy for medicinal cannabis, because stigma kept coming up as this recurring thing. And you hear it's medical marijuana, or it's medical weed and all that sort of stuff. So taking the stigma out of it by having people like Lauren Jackson makes a difference, because It's not Britney Spears going out there and saying, hey, Pepsi are paying me a few $1 million a year to endorse Pepsi, and she's caught drinking a Coke. These are actual athletes that have invested time and money into their bodies. So
and that are also using it now and getting benefit.
exactly. So they're practicing
Dimmer's
what they
just,
preach.
You know, because he was an ex-player as well. He's just, you know, he's a new man, he says, and he's using the C100. It's just he's sleeping better. All his inflammation's under control. And he's another person who said he would guzzle anti-inflammatories after a game, like grab a handful and just throw them down. And his guts are shot, like absolutely shot now. And he's just, you know, CBD, and he's getting the great results as well. But it is good, like you said, to use these sports stars, because people associate with a sports star quite personally. You know, you see somebody, they're a straight up sort of guy. You know, I sort of trust what they're saying. They're not your rock stars and that kind of thing. You know, how much they're being paid. These guys actually are using the product, getting benefit, and I think that is a really good bridge that Levin are doing. Is they're sport focused. They're also investing in a lot of studies as well. But then that, you know, spreads to the general public who we ultimately want to help. And there's a lot more general public than there are sports stars.
Exactly.
And they're the people, you know, the general public are the people who are going to benefit the most from this. You're someone with, you know, Auntie May with a bit of arthritis. Get off the anti-inflammatories. It's going to rot your guts. Get on a little bit of CBD oil.
Yeah.
You know.
Because there are so many people that don't know it's available.
No,
and
no,
I mean,
no.
you know, James will attest, you've probably got someone crying every couple of days going, thank God you've put me on this
Thank
stuff.
God,
I can't
yeah,
believe it.
thanking
It's
me all the
changed my
time.
life. You know,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
people that can't sleep properly, can't function. So, yeah, so that's what we focus at Levin Health, is trying to get the stigma down.
And it's interesting, you know, I was listening to you before say how we can't have people saying, oh, you know, that person's on. You don't want to tie the cannabis to sports people, or you do actually
Well,
in this
think about
case.
Willie Rioli. Like these are sorts of, you know, plays for West Coast. He sat out for 2 years, and these are the sorts of negative cannabis stories coming out of AFL.
But I was just going to say, like, when you're thinking about sports stars, you're thinking about people who influence. People look up to them. Children look up to them. You know, you've got this kind of position in society where people look and say, well, if it's good enough for him, it's probably good enough to me. I mean, you got to choose your AFL stars. It could be a couple of them. You got to choose the right one on occasion. But generally speaking, you know, these are people in society we look up to. You know, very public profile people, and I think that is a key element to changing the stigma game and changing the dialogue around cannabis in general. So
influences.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but the legitimate influences, if you like, because they're practicing what they preach. But it's like what.
Nadia Bartel on CBD?
No comment. So then, but even with Lauren, you know, she was saying she gets heaps of people reaching out to her because she's told her story. And look, for Levin Health, we're a private company at the moment, but a lot of our investors come from the sporting community, and a lot of and very big names, maybe even bigger than some of the people we've been able to speak about. But those people are practicing what they preach in the sense that they're taking it as well, and it feeds down. I often talk about the dinner party conversation. So you have that word of mouth. It happened to me just the other day. Actually, I was catching up with some former work colleagues, and my old boss was saying that his wife had just tried some medicinal cannabis from her brother-in-law because she'd had all of the cancer and the pain and all this sort of stuff. And I said, well, you know, why don't you give it a go for some Levin Health? I'll give you a good deal. I'm kidding. But they were just taking it on the whim because they were given the bottle and just said,
Sure.
oh, well, let's just see how it goes from the brother-in-law, and it was working. So I said, well, let's get you onto a prescriber, let's get you onto a proper dosing
Clinically
regime.
dosed,
And then
yeah.
suddenly, you know, hey presto, and they're already telling all of their friends about it because so many people are in the same boat at a certain age or stage in their life.
It's kind of like what Lauren said about, you know, being public with it and then everyone coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, hey, I'd really like to try that.
Yeah.
We have that all the time. Like, we speak to people and they're like, oh, what are you doing in medical cannabis? Oh, you know, my sister got that from America and they actually tried that. And it did something for her, you know, or it did nothing. You're like, well, where did...
Yeah, the did
What-
nothing.
the-
I always
where-
go, yeah, well,
yeah, what was
do you
it?
actually
What
know
did
what you
you
even
try?
bought from
Yeah.
the
How
USA?
long
You
did
know,
you
try and
try
get
it
something with a
for?
script over here. It
Yeah,
might actually work.
just Uncle Jim's snake oil. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
My snake oil.
No, that's Dr. Jim's snake oil.
Dr. Jim's snake oil. Yeah, well, that's why it is actually very important that you go see a doctor who actually understands what they're talking about, because so often you've got a lot of people that, you know, might have a sports injury and they go to their doctor and the doctor says, that doesn't work. That's just hippie fodder.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is a
so
shame.
it's what did I hear it referred to the other day? Jazz cabbage. So it's
Jazz
just
cabbage.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good name.
Jazz
for it.
cabbage.
Can't say I've ever heard that before.
Very good one. But you've got to try Dr. Jim's jazz cabbage.
Jim's
Jim's
Another
jazz
good
cabbage.
cabbage.
JC.
Actually, the
the
branding's
good
just
cabbage.
coming out here. Something beautifully.
We're actually, this is just a workshop.
Jazz cabbage.
Get the whiteboard out.
It's
Got a wing to it.
Yeah.
But no, you do you do have to see someone, a prescriber who knows what they're talking about. And it is unfortunate that there are doctors out there who still will, straight away fob it off, poo-poo cannabis, because in their mind it's still this nasty marijuana that's going to, they haven't. It's a shame. There's enough evidence out there to show that there's benefit and that it's safe. And it's a shame that some of the doctors don't. If there was something out there that I didn't understand, but I could see that it was working. And if I didn't understand it, I wouldn't fob it off. I would say, look, I don't know much about it. I think there's evidence out there. Find someone who does. And that's what they should be doing. They shouldn't just go, I had a patient today that she spoke to a GP and she said 3 times she spoke to a GP and he's gone, no, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't work. And just, which is crap. It should be, you should just say, I don't understand it. Go see a doctor that does.
How do we get to that point where you have two doctors, both the GPs, been through medical school? One says it doesn't work, one says it works.
Oh, it's just in any industry, there's you've got two sides of the table kind of thing, and I think it's just about having an open mind, and you're able to change your mind. If you thought back in the day, and I did growing up, that cannabis was a gateway drug. We all did. It was drummed into us at school. But you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to be presented with new evidence and change your mind. You don't have to be fixated. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors are stuck in their ways. But understandably, they also want to see the evidence as well.
Yeah.
And as we know, we don't have the big studies done yet. Levin are putting some money into doing some studies, which is great. And we're starting to get those numbers across, which doctors do want to see. We do like to see a lot of evidence-based medicine. Yeah. But sometimes, you've just got to... have a look what's out there. There's enough anecdotal stuff out there. I've got enough patients, a couple of thousand patients is enough for me to say, right, this works.
Yeah,
okay?
well, anecdotal, right? Like, this is the part that confuses me is that, and of course, randomized control trial, phase 3 data, all that is the gold standard. But to the extent that you have, particular drugs like opioids or something, and if it's not working for someone, those drugs that have all that data, they're literally treatment resistant or whatever, and they're just at their wits' end, and they're just thinking, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to fix this problem.
Yep.
I mean, surely anecdotal evidence is okay at that point.
You'd think so, yeah. And especially
There's
if
not a toilet in here for those playing at home.
For people not
Dr.
watching
James.
the video.
Also known as the water boy.
But that's it, and and it's safe.
The flip side to that whole conversation is that you've got heaps of drugs with clinical data, and we're finding that they're not so amazing
Exactly.
for you.
Yeah.
So it's
with
like,
the side effects.
who do we trust?
Yeah.
Dr. Jim.
But
The jazz
the jazz
At least let those
Trust the
people have a
jazz
go,
cabbage.
to your point. They've been
absolutely.
20 years and something's not working, it's stopped working, their life's a disaster. What have they got to lose? Hence refractory pain, etc. for the conditions.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. But I think some of those doctors too, some of them are anti-cannabis, but some of them are also scared of the unknown. So they come
and some
across
of them
as
don't want to learn.
anti-cannabis.
They're a bit older. You don't want to learn something. You're in your final sort of 5 years of GP, and you can't be asked learning, something a new thing. But don't fob it off. Just
You don't want to put your APRA on the line as well. A lot of doctors.
Well, they think they're gonna, I'm gonna prescribe cannabis. They're gonna go and buy it, and they're gonna go and sell it on the street, and it's gonna come back that I was the dealer on that. Which is no, it doesn't happen like that. But I think we can all agree that it's not a performance-enhancing drug, which is what we're sort of with the sports side of things as well. So I don't know. I'd like to see why it was brought in. Well, initially, why it was banned. The stuff I'm going through with Lauren and submitting the case for her is, I'd like to question. Okay, if it's not approved, please tell me why it was banned initially. Was it banned just because it was considered illegal?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case, well, we can now see that that's not a legitimate reason to ban something just because you thought it was an illegal substance. So now, why is it still banned? Why isn't it?
Well, it would have been, say it's a Schedule 8 drug,
Yeah.
but we've got other Schedule 8s that
I
they can
know.
take.
Like, it's
But
not,
it
I can
doesn't make
understand
sense,
anabolic
actually.
steroids. Anything that is clearly going to enhance your performance, yes, they can't be allowed. This does not. It does not. enhance your performance.
Yeah,
And-
even
and-
THC, performance reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to be shooting hoops on THC.
Well,
that's
you
for
might, maybe
sure.
a shooter, like an actual gun where you need you to be chilled and calm. They might benefit from THC.
I still
Maybe.
can't
I
say
don't-
it.
Yeah,
I've got
the
a
clay
bit
pigeon would have flown past. by
Yeah.
the time they recognise it.
A bit of a technical question, and I don't know if this might be left field, but with those therapeutic use exemption applications and all that stuff that you're going through with Lauren, who bears the onus of proof? Do they have to prove that cannabis is performance enhancing, or do you have to prove that it's not performance
Here's the lawyer.
enhancing?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. So from what I've learned, because I was getting quite frustrated with the process, but what the guys at the governing body said, we've got a protocol you have to follow, and this is the data we need. What Lauren was experiencing previously, all her injuries, blah 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 blah, what she's had done, what she was taking previously, what hasn't worked, why she's on the new product, and what benefit it's giving, and why she should continue to take it. I don't think I'm proving that it's not performance enhancing in a way. I don't think. I think I'm just saying why she should be allowed to take
It's
it.
almost like a
Because
SAS
it's-
B.
Yeah, because
Well,
it's
almost
it's
like
an illegal.
on an assumption that it is on a banned.
Yeah,
list
it's
because
a-
of the trace amount THC.
Yeah.
So it's like I accept that it's banned. I think it's silly that it's banned, but that's my own view, and I'm just seeking an exemption because
Yes.
it's a low. Yeah,
Because
a
it's
bit
so
like-
low, yeah. And to me, it seems very straightforward. But unfortunately, they have a process they've got to do, which I appreciate, to go through. But it's just taking so long. Like, it is so long. And you can hear speaking to Lauren that she's battling now
Yeah.
by not having this product on board. Her foot's blowing up. She's,
Yeah, she's been off
and-
for 3 or 4 months. Or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
now,
yeah. And, we want her best she can be. She's going to go and play for Australia. We want her
Absolutely.
powering along. So maybe the governing body are from the other countries and don't want her out there
Yeah.
representing her.
It's a conspiracy. You heard
It
it here
is.
first.
Most
is.
is.
Well, I did as an in fan, have to say I still remember when all the players learned their fate somewhere in Europe. I can't remember, but when they had the saga or the scandal at the club, and it's just this complex web, and you have domestic rules and codes,
Yep.
and then you have the wider. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be a minefield to navigate. I
Yeah.
imagine.
See, I'd love, something like AFL, where we're the only country that plays it. Like, I think they could take a stance and say, we're happy for a product like a C100 that has a small amount of THC in it, or something to be used in our athletes, because we don't have to apply to the World Anti-Doping, because we're the only ones that play Australian football, unless we go and play the Irish or whatever that's called, that comp we
the
do.
Gaelic.
But that could be. I don't know why an AFL athlete needs to apply, because we're the only ones making the rules.
Yeah,
Same
true.
as in the States, the NFL, that kind of thing.
Even if you had to
a
start,
great
just
point.
to start with a pure CBD.
Yeah.
Just to get it rolling.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone?
Was there
What do
some
you
government
think?
funding, though, that's tied to this for the AFL? I reckon years ago there was something to do with they get X number of dollars from the government, and that's why they can't go against WADA. There's something. There's something. There's something. There's always money involved. There's something there for sure. But I take the point that at least we're in sort of a.
Yeah, it's a good point.
One
We can do it
system that-
domestically like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
There's nothing
Well, a lot of their ex-players are taking it, so.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's in my mind, it's too late. You've given them the gut damage. They've already got the arthritis in the knee. They're now needing higher doses and going to be needed taking it longer. You've got these guys with post-concussion syndrome that could potentially benefit from taking it earlier, prior to getting these
But
symptoms.
can they? Okay, that's my sort of question then is, given WADA has sort of removed CBD at least from the banned substances list, isn't it the case that a current NRL and AFL player can actually right now take CBD oil as part of their recovery if it's just an isolate in a carrier
Yeah,
oil?
technically
Is that
they
right?
should be able to too, but you need to get it by the club.
Right,
You need to get it by the club doctor.
right.
And a lot of the time, the club doctors and the club are just like, no, we will not have our patient on,
Plenty of
our
red
player
tape.
on CBD.
Yeah.
Because in their mind, CBD is cannabis is marijuana. They're going to go and have
Stigma.
wild orgies on heroin,
Yeah.
which is a general link, which is
natural.
Naturally.
probably not NRL, probably not a good example.
I think I need some more CBD. Yeah, good. So if anyone's looking for a pro team doctor,
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think that it's interesting that gateway drug mentality it seems like a really poor excuse as to why somebody shouldn't take a drug because they might take another drug.
Yeah, and it's people.
It's like these guys are already taking 400 drugs.
Yeah, and people automatically assume with cannabis the worst is going to happen. You know, they assume that you have any type of cannabis product, you're going to flip out, get psychosis, you're gone. And everyone relates back to either a bad experience or a bad experience their friend had with one try of cannabis back in someone's garage when they were 16, they greened out, something like that, which is not the case. If that was the case, then you would relate anyone who said, let's go, I might go and have a drink. I relate that to someone downing a bottle of absinthe and throwing up and carrying on. Therefore, I'm not going to touch any alcohol. You know, they make that jump that any small cannabis is the same as having a huge amount of THC, which doesn't agree with anyone. Which is a shame. It needs to be again brought back in that you've got your CBD and THC, and under medication
But there's that nuance again, Dr.
It's
Jim.
also
You're
also comparing that THC with like somebody's moonshine that they've
exactly.
formulated in the
bar.
bar.
That's a good one.
So it's I had a really bad time when I drank pure ethanol out of some guy's bathtub. Yeah,
Billy Bob's
I don't
Barn
know
in
why.
Alabama.
I'm never
not
going
gonna drink ever.
I'm never going to have a beer.
But it's a good point because we're really talking about a high THC flower that somebody's rolling up into a cone and
That's
smoking
probably
out the back
somebody's
and
made-
getting
someone's
hammered.
made and
Versus a lovely oil made in a GMP facility that's got
Exactly.
traces of THC. They're very, very different products,
exactly.
and
If
they use
people-
very, very
If
different
people
ways.
could see the factories and the labs and the facilities that these medicinal cannabis product and the scrutiny that they go under,
Yes.
everyone would go, okay, right, this is a legit rigid proper medication.
You know,
Because-
opium comes from poppies.
Yeah, Tassie.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing.
70% of the world's
It's
production,
insane.
I think.
And
from
they're fine to give to,
But
Yeah.
I think as well, just as a broader comment, I think just drugs in sport generally, I know that there's been discussion about does the AFL and other codes need to rethink their drugs policy because you can...
Illegal drugs you're talking about,
Yeah,
on
and-
off season, that kind of thing.
and this is, I think, what plays into the stigma around taking something that's in that camp and then
I
saying...
suppose it's got a foot in both doors, you could say, at the moment. At cannabis, cannabis can be considered as an illegal one that shouldn't be done off. Marijuana, a legal one off season. So that, I guess, makes it tricky because you kind of got the lines blurred there because there's not, there's not a legal or medical amount of cocaine you can have during the season, but then on the off season, it's you don't want it.
I think you're not meant to have it in the off season either.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
You just
Or
don't
there's-
live stream it on Instagram. I think.
Yeah, you're going to get your mate filming you doing it. God. I think that again is. I know cannabis has got an uphill battle. It's got to break this stigma. It's got to break this negative context that's being just thrust onto us. And I think we're going about the right way. And Levin with our advisory board, sport advisory board, and getting athletes like Lauren talking about it is a foot in the right direction. Still got a bit of ground to go.
You can say the same thing though about other drugs, or even opioids or benzos or Xanax or whatever. If you don't have a script, you shouldn't be taking that. Even in the off season, really, like that's illegal.
Yes,
it's illegal for anyone.
Yeah,
even sports players.
True that. If you don't have a prescription, you can't.
You know what I mean? So I can't see how it's very different. And I know this is a cannabis centric conversation, but could you ever see, maybe psilocybin?
I knew
in
you were
sports?
going there.
I'm
Just knew it.
As
soon as I know
it's
this is
Altmed,
cannabis,
all right.
I
just
knew it.
In what context?
Have you got the teapot brewing? Have you?
Need to just take me through it.
This will be
I'm
great.
curious. I'm not sure. Is there an application for other psychedelic?
No.
What about the trauma of not winning the flag though?
Afterwards, baby.
Yeah,
yes.
you know what I mean.
But not as it. No, your psilocybins.
I was like,
and
bridge too far.
We're talking about a bridge over troubled water. Here we go.
I had to ask, because cannabis is a gateway drug and all that, so I just wanted to find out.
Yes. No. I don't think there'd be for psychedelics. No.
Look, maybe the North Melbourne players with their PTSD for such a
They're sort of going
awful
in Monday
season.
morning each week and having a clinically supervised.
I hear there's a few
that could really
AFL
help.
players taking MDMA just in case. No, I'm just kidding. But
You've seen it firsthand, have you?
well, I've been known to frequent a couple.
I was
of
going to
night
say no
spots.
comment.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment.
No
but
comment. Luckily, this podcast's being edited.
Yes.
Leave it in. Very interesting. All right. Well, I think that's that draws us.
Almost a wrap. I just have one last question about Levin. Last one.
No, I want to wrap it. No,
Okay.
I'm
No, I just want to know. So, in terms then of the advisory board, the events that you guys are doing, the dinner, what is sort of where do you sort of want to get to with everything, Levin? Is it just about awareness and removing stigma, or are there some other kind of
Well, it's making it
milestones?
a legitimate medicinal option, really. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be on the fringes, and that we don't have to be a medicinal cannabis company. We can be a pharmaceutical company that it's part of the tool belt. So that's really what we want at the end of the day, and I think that's where the industry's going. There's 20 to 30 brands at the moment. I mean, it's consolidate or liquidate, really.
Yeah.
And in order to be treated like a quote unquote proper drug, you need to be able to be a pharmaceutical and not medicinal cannabis. So, it's taking it from medical marijuana terminology to medicinal cannabis to, hey, it's just
But
medicinal
also
cannabis
just
like any other drug.
Just something you use on, instead of
Exactly.
going and getting a paracetamol or a ibuprofen after a game, you go and get a CBD tablet over the counter, and that's the way it should go. Hopefully it will.
And I think you guys are different in that respect, that you've got these, really high-profile community role models standing behind it. And I don't see other companies doing it. I think it's great because it really is helping to spread the message. You got Dr. Jim and his jazz lettuce, jazz cabbage involved.
Jazz
Jazz lettuce,
Jazz cabbage.
Jazz cabbage.
I'm about it.
I'm about it.
When it goes rec, that's my first
Jazz,
label.
righto.
Dr. Jim's jazz.
Right.
We'll copyright it straight after this.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much, guys. Really great.
Thanks for having
to
us.
Guys.
have you on and to
Thank you,
share all
Lauren.
your
Thank you,
insights.
guys. Yeah.
It's great
Pleasure.
to actually tackle a topic we hadn't touched before.
It was nice hearing Dr. James talking about medicine and not just the history. No, I'm just kidding.
You've been to our dinners.
I loved the history, Jim, and
It was really
come
good.
back and do part 2, 3, however many.
Well,
you like.
part 3 next one will be,
Yeah.
But no, big thanks to Lauren as well
Absolutely.
for sort of,
Lauren.
it takes, for her to come out and say that she's using it. She's using CBD products. It is a step forward, which is great. And I hope more athletes can do that. And and also, general sports people out there, you don't have to be a superstar to benefit from these products. So if if anyone's out there and they got aches and pains from weekend warriors and that kind of thing, you too can benefit from CBD and medicinal cannabis products. So find a doctor that's willing to prescribe and knows what to do, and then you can get the benefits as well. It doesn't have to be something you need to be scared of or hide away from or worried about. You'll be in good hands if you come and see a trained doctor. So
Totally.
get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope what a story it would be, by the way, if we do see Lauren actually make
Unbelievable.
the Locals team. Like,
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's probably
awesome.
the best billboard for medical
Holy
cannabis,
moly,
honestly.
isn't it ever? You couldn't get a better one. I mean, seriously, like if she makes the Aussie team 41,
Yeah.
like
That's a
from where
comeback. That's a
she's
real
been,
comeback.
like from, she tells me she couldn't even play with the kids, like just in so much pain to
Wow.
now about to be back on the Opal. Like,
my-
come on, that's got to be.
It's done such an amazing job. They should take it away from her as they've just done.
Well, I'm glad we were able to squeeze in a little sliver of her time before she jets off to America. So, thanks for organising it, guys. Appreciate your time and your insights. And until the next one, take
Well,
care.
we're wanting Tom to bring some more sports stars on. It's good for our ratings.
I'm basically just a pimp with sports cannabis. There's no doubt about it. I'll just have to get the suit
Sports
to
cannabis
wrap.
pimp. It's a good niche.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how it works. No, thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you
Really
very
nice.
much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.